Imagine a war that lasted nearly 8 centuries, longer than most countries have existed. The United States is less than 250 years old. This conflict spanned over 3 times that. It began before the printing press and ended as Columbus set sail for the Americas. Generations lived and died under its shadow. This war shaped nations, cultures, and even the language of a major European country. It's a testament to human endurance, and our capacity for endless conflict. How could a war last so long? The answer is woven into history, faith, and the land itself. Unlike most wars, this wasn't a single event, it was a slow-burning fire. Sometimes it erupted into major battles, other times it simmered in uneasy peace, but it never truly ended until centuries had passed. To understand it, we must travel back to a world where borders were fluid and faith defined identity. This was a clash of civilizations, but also a story of neighbors, sometimes at peace, sometimes at war. Heroes and villains existed on both sides. The world we know today was forged in this crucible. Our journey into this epic struggle begins now. We'll explore its causes, its key moments, and its legacy. This isn't just about kings and armies. It's about the grinding process of history itself. Join me as we uncover the story of the longest war in human history. Its lessons are as surprising as they are profound. This epic conflict is known as the Reconquista, Spanish for the Reconquest. For the Christian kingdoms of the north, it was a mission to reclaim lost lands. They saw themselves as restoring a lost Christian kingdom, turning soldiers into crusaders. But for the Muslim rulers of the south, it was simply home, Al-Andalus. Their ancestors had lived there for centuries, building cities and a vibrant culture. To them, the advancing Christian armies were invaders. So, while one side saw a righteous recovery, the other saw a desperate defense. The term Reconquista can be misleading. It suggests a single organized war. In reality, it was a series of wars, campaigns, and truces. Sometimes Christian and Muslim states traded, even allied against common enemies. The lines were often blurred. It wasn't just us versus them. Reconquista is a label applied later to make sense of centuries of conflict. It captures the gradual expansion of Christian power, but not the full human story. There were moments of cooperation, cultural exchange, and for many, this was simply life. The process was slow, marked by bursts of violence and long stretches of uneasy peace. The struggle defined the Iberian Peninsula for nearly 8 centuries. When we use the word, we must remember its complexity. It's a story of conquest, coexistence, and change, and it shaped the destiny of an entire region. The war began in 711, when North African Berbers and Arabs crossed the sea and landed at Gibraltar. In a few years, they conquered almost all of the Iberian Peninsula, modern Spain and Portugal. The Christian Visigothic kingdom collapsed and the new Muslim rulers established Al-Andalus, a center of science and art. But resistance began almost immediately in the mountainous north. In 722, a small Christian force led by Pelayo won at Covadonga, the symbolic start of the Reconquista. From this spark, Christian kingdoms slowly pushed south. The conflict drew in the wider world. The Pope declared it a crusade, and knights from across Europe joined the fight. This turned a local struggle into a global ideological battle. The war ended in 1492 when Isabella and Ferdinand's armies conquered Granada, the last Muslim kingdom. That same year, Columbus sailed for the Americas. The end of the war marked the dawn of a new global era. A chapter closed, and another began. Why did this war drag on for nearly 8 centuries? Religion was a driving force. Both sides saw it as a holy war. The Christian kingdoms fought to reclaim land for Christ with the church's full support. Muslim rulers defended Al-Andalus as sacred ground. Faith turned political disputes into sacred duties, fueling the conflict. But it was also about power and wealth. The Iberian Peninsula was rich, its cities prosperous. Kings and nobles on both sides wanted control. Conquering new land meant more power, more taxes, and more rewards. The war became a cycle. Victory brought resources for the next campaign. Neither side was strong enough to win quickly. Al-Andalus was once unified and powerful, but later fractured into rival kingdoms. Christian kingdoms were also divided, often fighting each other. This internal strife prolonged the stalemate. Geography played a role. Mountains and rivers made conquest slow and difficult. Armies could only campaign part of the year. Sieges could last months or years. Each advance was hard-won, and the front line often stalled for decades. The land itself dictated the slow pace. In the end, it was a war of endurance, shaped by faith, ambition, and geography. That's why it lasted so long. The Reconquista's history was anything but straightforward. For centuries, Al-Andalus was dominant, its armies raided deep into Christian lands. Christian kingdoms clung to survival in the mountains, progress painfully slow. Everything changed in the 11th century when the Caliphate of Cordoba collapsed into rival taifas. Christian kings exploited this, demanding gold for peace and growing stronger. In 1085, King Alfonso VI captured Toledo, a turning point. Alarmed, new Muslim dynasties from North Africa arrived, briefly reversing Christian gains. But in 1212, the Battle of Las Navas de Tolosa saw a united Christian force crush the Almohads. After that, Christian armies swept south, capturing Cordoba, Seville, and all of Portugal. By the late 1200s, only Granada remained under Muslim rule. For 250 more years, Granada held out, a small island in a Christian sea. The tides of battle shifted, but the end was inevitable. The Reconquista was a story of rise, fall, and relentless momentum. Each victory and defeat shaped the fate of the peninsula, and the final act was yet to come. For ordinary people, life during the Reconquista was complex. It wasn't constant war. Frontier regions saw surprising coexistence. Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived together in cities like Toledo, sharing knowledge and culture. This convivencia sparked advances that helped fuel the European Renaissance. But danger was never far away. Raids, sieges, and sudden violence were always possible. Communities lived in fortified towns, always alert. Society was organized for war. Knights and nobles fought, commoners paid heavy taxes and sometimes served in militias. As Christian kingdoms advanced, tolerance faded. Early on, Muslims and Jews could keep their faith if they paid a tax. Over time, pressure to convert grew. After Granada's fall, Jews and Muslims were forced to convert or leave. The era of convivencia ended in exile and persecution. War shaped every aspect of life, from daily routines to the fate of entire communities. The shadow of conflict was inescapable. By the late 1400s, only Granada remained of Al-Andalus. This small, wealthy kingdom survived by paying tribute and playing rivals against each other. Its rulers built the Alhambra, a symbol of enduring culture. In 1469, Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon married, uniting their kingdoms into a new superpower, Spain. United and devout, they were determined to finish the Reconquista. In 1482, the final war for Granada began, a 10-year campaign of sieges and artillery. Towns and castles fell one by one. In 1492, Granada's last ruler, Boabdil, surrendered. The Christian banners rose over the Alhambra. The Reconquista was over. 1492 was a turning point. Spain was unified, confident, and ready for new challenges. That same year, Isabella and Ferdinand funded Columbus's voyage. The end of the longest war in history enabled the beginning of a new age, European exploration and empire. A new chapter for Spain and the world had begun. The echoes of this victory would shape centuries to come. The peninsula was forever changed. The world was about to be too. The story didn't end, it transformed. The Reconquista's legacy is everywhere in Spain and Portugal. Architecture tells the story. Mosques turned cathedrals, the Alhambra's splendor, castles and walls from both sides. The landscape is a living history book. The war left its mark on language. Spanish and Portuguese are filled with Arabic words. Even music, like flamenco, carries echoes of blended cultures. The idea of a nation forged in holy struggle shaped Spain's identity for centuries. But the legacy is also dark. The drive for religious unity led to the Spanish Inquisition. Converts from Judaism and Islam faced suspicion, persecution, and exile. The ideal of convivencia was replaced by demands for purity, with tragic consequences. The Reconquista is more than a distant war. It's a lesson in how history shapes identity, faith, and culture. It reminds us that history is complex, full of both conflict and exchange. The story of Al-Andalus and the Christian kingdom shaped Europe, and through exploration the world. Its echoes still resonate today. We've traveled back over 1,000 years to witness a war that outlasted empires. The Reconquista wasn't a single war, but a long, tangled series of struggles. It was fueled by faith, ambition, and the human need for belonging. We've seen key moments, from Covadonga to Las Navas de Tolosa to the fall of Granada. This was more than a story of kings and battles. It was about ordinary people living on a shifting frontier. Christians, Muslims, and Jews shared knowledge and culture, even as leaders fought. The legacy is complex art, science, and painful memories of persecution. The end of the Reconquista led to the age of exploration and the birth of global empires. Understanding these long processes helps us understand ourselves. History is never simple but always worth exploring. If you want to keep uncovering the mysteries of our past, join us. Subscribe, and let's keep asking the big questions together.